What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. I'm here joined with Jay, and we're going to have a little bit of a debate. It got sparked up over the weekend. Obviously, UFC 258 happened. Kamaru Usman defended his title for a third time, and it's run up the conversation, didn't it? A little bit of a debate of, is he now the greatest welterweight of all time? Jay, first of all, how impressed with you by Kamaru Usman over the weekend? Fantastic defense against Gilbert Burns. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought he was very impressive. For me, this was the one for him. I thought this would let us know just how good Kamaru Usman really is. I thought Gilbert Burns would actually leave with the title. I was very surprised just how good Usman's hands looked so quick after working with Trevor Whitman. I didn't think it would come to fruition so soon, but yeah, he looked fantastic. And like I said, that was the one for me where if you beat Gilbert Burns, yeah, he's the real deal. Not that he wasn't before. Like you seen that war with Colby and stuff like that, and the one-sided fight against Masvidal. Yeah, but I just thought Gilbert Burns was a whole different threat. He's very much the same as Colby and Usman, where he's 5 rounds, he sets a pace, and he doesn't stop. He doesn't slow down, and I tend to believe Gilbert Burns when he says he got overexcited in there. Especially after hurting Usman in the first round. I think he got overexcited and tried to get him out of there, and I think he saw he had one hand on the title, and he just put all in for it, and it didn't work out in his favor. But Usman he put it on him, dropped him twice with a jab. Jesus Christ, what does that tell you? Last time I seen someone being dropped with a jab was probably Anderson Silva, Forrest Griffin. I know there was probably people dropped with jabs after that, but the one that comes to mind is Anderson Silva, Forrest Griffin.
Absolutely, it's incredible. The amount of disrespect and sort of discredit that Usman's got over the past year and a bit, especially after that Masvidal fight. A lot of people, you saw the memes about him training toe stomps and foot stomps through a camp, and I feel like he gets discredited because not only did Masvidal take that fight on 6 days' notice, Usman was on his way home with obviously Burns not being able to compete in that fight, so he only had 6 days to prepare as well, and it was crazy. He put on the performance he needed to, and I do think the Burns and sort of Covington fights are very similar, albeit one was built entirely on hate and despair for one another, while this one was more competitive and more respect-based. But both of them, we did not use this cliche too much. Love and hate is quite similar, isn't it? And you can see the Burns and Usman showed that sort of respect after it was about getting the job done. Now, that has meant that they have come out and said, maybe Usman's the greatest welterweight of all time. And I think there's a couple of names, or at least one particular name that would be upset by that comparison, maybe, at least at the moment.
Yeah, look, listen, I watched the pay-per-view, and the opening of the pay-per-view, Joe Rogan goes on and says he might just be the greatest welterweight of all time. And the problem with Joe Rogan is a lot of people listen to Joe Rogan, and sometimes he speaks, there's a lot of things he says that I do agree with, but lately there's been an awful lot that I just don't agree with, and that was one of them. And that's not to discredit Kamaru Usman. Can Kamaru Usman be the greatest welterweight of all time? Absolutely. Sky's the limit for him. But 3 fights ago, Joe Rogan was saying Tyron Woodley was probably the greatest welterweight of all time. It's a very, MMA these days, people have a very short memory. And this has been said for not just Kamaru Usman, but a lot of champions. Jose Aldo was the greatest featherweight champion of all time. I think Conor McGregor was the greatest featherweight champion of all time for 5 minutes because he beat Jose Aldo. But then, right, fair enough, McGregor never defended his title, and then Max Holloway comes in and steamrolls the division. Now Max is the greatest. Personally, I think Max is the greatest. But we keep changing opinions. I remember I said this before when we spoke on a previous channel. And I said, if Amanda Nunes lost her title, that doesn't mean she's still not the greatest women's fighter of all time. If someone comes in and beats her, that person does not automatically become the greatest of all time. Styles make fights. There's so many changes, and look, it's MMA, 4-ounce gloves. Things can happen. So it doesn't technically mean someone's better than the previous. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's just the same with Kamaru Usman. Like, you have to remember, you just have to look at who George St. Pierre is beating, how he's beating them over a period of time, and his losses, he's lost both 2 times. He's lost. He's come back and not only just beat the opponent, he made an example of the opponent, and nothing else can be said about that. Like for me, you know, I think Kamaru Usman has a long way to go, but he can get there. Like his ability can get him there for sure, and he seems strong-minded enough to do that. Like I don't see anybody beating him now. Um, the way I see it with GSP, GSP's just done. He's beaten opponents at their strengths. Sometimes he'll just choose to fight them at their weaknesses and maul them. You know, Usman hasn't done that. Well, not that he hasn't done that yet, but he's beaten 4 really good fighters. You know what I mean? And that's just perfect. It's a good start. It's a solid start. Um, you look at Rafael dos Anjos and Damian Maia, he beat them both coming off losses to Colby Covington, funnily enough. And then it got better. Then he fought Woodley and he steamrolled Woodley. And then it was Colby. Fantastic fight. And then it was Masvidal on 6 days' notice. I believe he beats Masvidal on a full camp, either way. And then Gilbert Burns. That was the one for me. I didn't think he'd beat Gilbert Burns, but he did. So yeah, there's a long ways to go, but he's not the greatest welterweight of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did see. It irks me. Sometimes you go through social media. I did see Gilbert Burns being called a cam after Saturday night when
Absolutely not.
that jab when he hit him with that right. If he knocked Usman out in that first round, everyone's calling him, oh, maybe he could be the greatest welterweight of all time because he just beat the champ. It's on the knife edge how it goes. But you mentioned it, obviously. I think the biggest sort of selling point towards this is that the fact that Usman did break his record for active winning streak as an active fighter. He's now on 13, standing alone by himself at the moment. But obviously, GSP has got that 9 title defenses, and I guess it's how do you determine your sort of GOAT status? What defines it? Is it title? Is it title defenses? Is it sort of title reigns? If you had multiple title reigns, of course, how many pay-per-views you sold, etc. Because obviously, we don't see McGregor as a greatest of all time in an aspect of he's not defended the belt, but what he's done for the game and the sport as a whole, you could probably put him on there on a pedestal by himself.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And so if we're gonna go off statistics, then you would say Kamaru Usman is the greatest of all time now, wouldn't you? But it's just not the case. And you can look at it with title defenses as well. But what happens if Kamaru Usman gets injured in the next 4 fights, like a permanent injury or something, where he has to take a back step and probably retire from MMA? But he's been dominant in that. He could go on to be the greatest welterweight of all time. We're in these next 4 fights, okay? But yet won't match up to GSP's title defenses. So you can't just keep going by numbers all the time. It has to go by the level of talent that you've beat, how you beat them, how dominant you are. GSP has done that. Look at the people GSP has fought. Matt Hughes 3 times, lost once, okay, came back and beat you twice. I'll knock you out and then I'll submit you. Matt Serra, he lost the title, they made an example out of him. Thiago Alves was an absolute wrecking machine, right? 6 or 7 fight win streak, knocking everybody out, chopping people's legs up. No problem, I'll run through him. Dan Hardy 7 fight win streak, ran through him. Jake Shields 15 fight win streak. John Fitch 16 fight win streak. Do you know what I mean? Like, just give GSP his flowers. Like, do you know what I mean? This man has done what he's needed to do to have that GOAT status, and you need to beat that level of opponents. Like, 4 solid fighters in a row is not enough. It's a great start, is what I'm saying. And again, this is not taking any credit away from Usman. If Usman, like, he'd probably say, right, am I the greatest going off what I've done so far? He might say no. He might say no, I still have some ways to go. Or he could feel that he is. And fair enough to him. That's fine. But I just feel like there needs to be more, not that he's not doing enough. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's going out, he's standing in front of people and he's putting them away now, and he's looking great doing it. So it's just a consistent basis, keep doing it, and then we won't have anything to argue with. It's kind of like how, like, I feel the same about the heavyweights. Like, people keep going on about the heavyweight title defenses. You see the way you brought up title defenses, right? The most was 2 for the longest time. The record was 2, wasn't it? And then Stipe broke it. So Stipe breaks it and now he's the greatest. Just because you got an extra title defense does not mean you're the greatest. It's the level of opponents that you're beating also. For me, Kane is, and I think Prime Kane and Prime Stipe, Kane wipes the floor with him. I think Kane is the greatest heavyweight of all time. did he get 3 title defenses now? But like that doesn't change things for me, you know. Like Kane fought the Ngannou of his division as well, and Junior Dos Santos, who was just a one-punch knockout artist. Where granted he doesn't have the scariest power like Ngannou, but Junior only had to touch people and they were going to sleep, you know. Kane went in and wrecked him twice after being knocked out by him, you know. I don't know. It's just a matter of opinion. This is all it is. It's the fun of mixed martial arts. You know, sometimes I think just people tend to listen too much to Joe Rogan and his opinion. I think his opinion's very. I don't know. You said it before we went on. I think he's just caught up in the moment, and you know he says things. Maybe sometimes you listen back and think, "Geez, I probably shouldn't have said that." I remember he said it about Ronda Rousey once and the Machida era, and you know, but I form my opinion from what I watch, you know. But who am I, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. It's also interesting, obviously, you know, I'm watching, obviously, Juventus are playing at the moment. We do see that comparison a lot in football. Is like, who's better, Pele or Ronaldo? How would they do in the 60s? Now, obviously, that's an elongated amount of time because obviously football's been so long. We've only had this sport for, what, 27 years, I think, this year, 28 years. And we've seen so much. And I think maybe there's some people that, you know, got into the sport 2015, 2016, and only really saw GSP fight for the middleweight title. They didn't see his backlog of welterweight titles. They've probably seen it on highlights, and obviously you see it on highlights, but you don't get that same feeling when you sat there at 3 a.m. in the morning, as we are in UK and Europe, and you're watching, you know, a mastermind, you know, work his eye inside the cage. And GSP does that so many times and done that so many times. In that prime versus prime conversation, how do you think Prime Usman, even if he is in his prime at the moment, he's 33 years old, he might still have 2 years before he, you know, we classify what his prime is. How do you think he would do against a prime GSP?
I think it'd be a very good fight, but I think a prime GSP picks your weakness and he's relentless. You remember Thiago Alves, right? The chop hit, like he would chop GSP's legs out if GSP didn't take him down. So GSP got him down and absolutely beat him up. Same with Dan Hardy, knockout power. Right, you're going to the ground and I'm going to piece you up down there as well. Tried to rip his arm off twice. You remember who was it? Oh God, there was someone as well. Johnny Hendricks. Like Johnny Hendricks took every steroid known to man. You know what I mean? Knocking people across the room he was. And GSP went in, took a beating off him as well, but left with his arm raised and the title around his waist, you know. The GSP would have got his arm raised one way or another, you know. I don't like the way that they're kind of calling for it now. Like this is the problem with MMA. Like people are calling for GSP to come out now, you know, and fight Usman. And if he comes back and Usman beats him, you know, that means Usman's the GOAT. No, it's just a different era. It's a different time. Like you can't keep like I don't know. Like that's like saying like, bring back Brock, you know, to fight fucking Stipe. It's not gonna do anything. You know, it's different times, different eras, like different generations. But at the time that GSP was in his prime, he fought the best of the best, and he made it look easy. And that's what Usman's doing now. And this is what I'm saying. Usman just needs to do it a little bit longer. That's all. It's not that he's doing anything wrong. He just needs to do it a little bit longer, and he'll get there.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I don't know if that answers your question or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it does well because you mentioned the Thiago Alves there, and I was just thinking that, you know, 2013 GSP, you know, the game has evolved in so much. I was just thinking how the calf kicks maybe would come into effect. But again, it's the same sort of thing. We've seen the game evolve so much, and obviously GSP is probably the prime student of how the game has almost been taught. Demetrius Johnson's up there, John Jones is up there, albeit, you know, he's got a tainted legacy. And I do think when you build that Mount Rushmore, GSP, Anderson Silva, John Jones, and DJ, personally, on my thought with GSP at the top, just because he's never been, as far as we know, he's not ever tested positive. You know, he's alleged, well, supposedly clean, and we have to face that at face value because we know Anderson Silva and John Jones has tested positive for certain substances in their career.
Yeah, like, and yeah, I suppose you could throw Khabib into that. Now, the thing with Khabib, right? Like, Khabib hasn't fought the top fighters for long enough either. But while he's been here, he's beaten the majority, and he's made it look easy. But GSP done it over a period of time. You know, every time there was a new wave of top talent, GSP beat them. You know, Khabib beat one era of top talent, basically. You know what I'm saying? But I think if he had went a little bit longer, he could have been on the Mount Rushmore. You know, I tend to agree with that. What was your question to that? I agree with you, Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. I think it was more than an observation. You mentioned Khabib there. Obviously, he is retired, quote unquote retired, and he's going to stay retired. There was a couple maybe asked the seeing Khabib challenge Usman. How do you think that fight go? Both, phenomenal wrestlers, phenomenal gas tanks, two very sort of different styles of wrestling, and obviously Khabib would have to go up 15 pounds. Do you think we'd see a competitive fight?
Well, I don't think it happens, but we'll talk hypothetically. I think Usman is just too big for him. You know, Usman's frame. Usman looks like a light heavyweight cutting down to middleweight. You know what I mean? Like he looks like he reminds me of Anthony Johnson at welterweight. You know what I mean? You're just too big to be here, but he makes it, and he makes it easy, and he's dominant. So I don't think Khabib would win that fight, and I don't think he needs to have that fight. That's not a fight that determines his legacy. Usman's a welterweight. Khabib's a lightweight. Fight your challenges in said division. We all keep wanting super fights just for the sake of wanting them. You know, like they mean like that fight means nothing. If that fight was never brought up, we wouldn't have lost sleep with it. You know what I mean? I still have me Ash Wednesday on my head. Do I? I do. Yeah, yeah. Like they mean nothing. You know, like if someone doesn't bring it up, we don't think about it. You know, it's just that little chat that gets thrown out there, and then all of a sudden everybody gets excited. Nah, no point. Let Khabib dominate. There's still people in Khabib's division. You know, I'd like to see him fight a Michael Chandler. You know, the Tony Ferguson one's gone now, clearly, but you know that would have been a fight as well. It's another person that he hasn't fought. You know, and Usman, there's Leon Edwards out there. I know there's the talk of Masvidal at a full camp, but again, I still think he beats Masvidal. The Colby rematch, but these are people that he's beat already. You know, so what more is there to do? He's just gonna have to keep beating the same people until the next wave come along.
Yes, and it is crazy that the top, well, he obviously the champion, but the four beneath him, he's already fought and beat, and he's probably going to go for the next year, probably having rematches with the likes of Edwards, the likes of Masvidal, Covington's in there, and Burns will probably, he only needs one win again, and he'll be back in the conversation. It's crazy that we have to look at Wonderboy as the only opponent that Usman's not facing. Even Wonderboy is on a bit of a resurgence. And I put a video yesterday saying I like to see Burns versus Wonderboy. And then later down the line, probably towards the back end of the year, going into next year, we see a potential rematch or Wonderboy fight for the title again.
I don't think he will. You know, I can understand, he's having a little bit of a resurgence, but I can't see him, beating any of that top four. I think Colby beats him, Burns beats him. No, well, granted, I think if he fought Woodley now, he'd definitely beat Woodley. Yeah, and I don't think he beats Usman either, so I just don't see it happening. But look, all he has to do is, if he keeps winning, you can't deny him, so.
It's tough, and obviously you mentioned the new breed coming through, and I think the biggest name and maybe the biggest threat at Usman in terms of the new blood coming through is Khamzat Chimaev.
Don't say it. Don't say it. No, I'm not. I hate fucking hype. I hate this stuff. Like I don't like. He's God. Like no, he's just not there. Like he was lucky to be matched up with Edwards. You know what I mean? What's it?
I said Edwards has come out more favourable. Well, I guess less favourable because he's going to fight Covington. But the fact that he took that fight on 3 different occasions, Dana White has pretty much rewarded him with the fight with Colby Covington.
See, this is what annoys me, right? And first of all, before Edwards went on that, like before he was on a hiatus, basically, not to no fault of his own, but before that, people were clamoring for him to get a title shot that he was deserving. Yeah, can we agree on that? He was deserving, right? Time goes by, and he's moved down the pecking order just because of inactivity. Again, no fault of his own, but there's been inactivity, right? So the people that are in there doing work, the Usmans, the Burns, the Masvidals, Colbys, they're obviously going to be in more favour just because they've been active, and it's memory. You know what I mean? Like if I stay in your face, you can't forget me. So that's how it goes. Chimaev, he would have got a title shot if he beat Chimaev, and he shouldn't have got one. he wouldn't have deserved one because who the fuck is this dude? You know what I mean? If we're here in 2 years' time and we're saying, right, this kid's elite, then yeah, fair enough, but he hasn't put his time in yet, you know? He's had 3 wins, 3 good wins, fair enough, but to nobody
Only one
outside the
done a
top
welterweight
15.
too.
Yeah, and nobody's a top 15, so no, like, the fucking hype machine. Dana likes to find a new toy every now and then, and he likes to play with it a lot, and clearly he sees that in Chimaev, but well, why did Chimaev pull out of this fight again? Like, right, okay, COVID reasons. So why did he accept the fight? He pulled out the last one because of COVID reasons. Fair enough. So why accept this one if you still have COVID issues? You know what I mean? Like, it made no sense to me.
Yeah, seemingly like he's still got the lingering issues from that last pull out where he did test positive to COVID, and it seems like we saw Dana White say he's flying him out to Vegas because of the healthcare reasons. That I think he's training in Sweden at least, so he's being flown out to America and being looked at there. And it seems like it could have been very serious, but it seems like he's on the mend. But again, yeah, you're absolutely right. He's only had 1 win at welterweight, 2 wins at middleweight, and he's in line. Had he beat Leon Edwards, it probably would have been next in line just to the fact that Usman had beaten everyone that's ahead of him.
See, like, again, like, if he was to go on a 2-fight loss or 2-fight skid, Dana has no time for him. He's just got to book him normally then, you know what I mean? Like, he starts off great, fair enough, and he's balls. He's like, oh, I want to fight next week. Okay, no problem. Now Dana loves him, you know. If he loses one of them, it's like, oh, well, shit, can't really do anything with him. It was just too much too soon, and that stuff, like, bugs the life out of me, you know. It really does. Like, that's Bellator shit.
Absolutely. But to go back to the debate then, obviously Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, we went sidetracked.
We have to look at these things. I even saw a comment. I did a poster, a Facebook page, and it was like, I'd love to see Conor fight Usman. And I was like, it almost sent shivers down my spine. It was like, cut that one there. That's not a fight I want. I particularly want the Conor.
No, I love Conor, and I if I could see him go and get the torch strap, ideally I'd like it against Masvidal because I just don't fancy it.
Beats him in the rematch. Then we're all guns ahead.
No, I think that's the only way I would want to see. I don't want to see Conor at welterweight again.
Nah, not particularly. Unless, only super fights really make sense then. Because I do think when you look at your Colbys, your Burns, your Usmans, they're dangerous opponents to be having for Conor McGregor. Obviously, them probably on fight night at 190, probably closing on 200, where he's still 170, 180 at the very.
I don't even think he's ever fought out. Like, I don't even think he's ever walked into the cage at 180 when he fought at welterweight, because he usually kind of stays around which is around 168, isn't it? So
yeah, it's grim.
Like, you have to look at it. Like, if you look at how he fought against Khabib, not how he fought against Khabib, but what Khabib done to him, and then you go up and you fight the bigger guys in Colby, in Burns, in Usman, who are all basically kind of similar style. Obviously, Khabib has better wrestling. These guys are bigger. They're going to drain it out of him as well, and then they're going to put hands on him. I don't want to see that. Definitely don't want to see that.
No, let's keep it. Let's keep the Poirier rematch there, and then maybe the Nate trilogy, and then the Nate Diaz trilogy, and let's count our stock then. But to go back to the welterweights at the moment, saying that he's got more wins at welterweight than he does at lightweight in the UFC, which is mental if you said that 4 years ago. But going to the welterweights, I guess we can agree that GSP is probably number one for now because, again, a 2,000-day title reign, 9 title defenses, 2 separate title reigns. You can't overlook that. But then I guess I'm looking here, Woodley, again, someone who's very underrated, 945-day title reign, 4 title defenses, albeit one of them was a draw. And he's got, the likes of Matt Hughes, Pat Miletic, who's done it on 4 and 5 times. So theoretically, on title defenses, Usman's 5th on that list? It's kind of crazy. Do you think he's 5th, or do you put him in that number 2 or 3 spots? I do think he, on the basis of the performances, has matched Woodley at least as a welterweight champion.
I think he's exceeded Woodley, especially with the level of opponent he's beaten. Woodley just held on to it longer. Like, if you had, remember when GSP came back and fought Bisping? Excuse me. If when GSP came back and fought Bisping, if that was him coming back at 170 against Tyron Woodley, your honest opinion, who do you think wins that fight? With Woodley at that stage, not Woodley now. Woodley back
Yeah,
then. Who do
probably
you think wins
Woodley.
that fight?
Maybe
What?
I don't know. Woodley was explosive again.
I
GSP is an
was not
absolute
expecting
monster.
that.
I was.
I was.
You know what went through my head? The GSP,
I'm
not
gonna
the
clip
Woodley that.
this for that reaction.
What went through my head was the Woodley that beat Lawler. I was like, oh, maybe. And then I've realised that GSP, yeah, as we've spoken, GSP is the mastermind of mixed martial arts. I'm just going to leave the call.
That was funny. No, I just don't see like. I think GSP would have beat him as well. You know, you have to remember he had that crack against Robbie Lawler. You know, he put out he put a beating on Wonderboy. The first one was a draw. The second one, you know, Wonderboy. I don't know what happened in the second one, but like all of a sudden he went gun shy, didn't he? No, he just didn't want to throw punches. GSP would have mauled him. He just picked him apart with a jab, took him down, beat him up.
Probably submission win or 5-round decision, but very conclusively. Probably similarly to how Usman beat him.
Yeah, maybe. You know, it would just would have been more. It would have been in the middle of the octagon. You know, it wouldn't have been up against the fence and nothing like that. GSP, his takedowns like and his timing is impeccable. You know, he would have got under and he would have took his legs out and he would have got him down. And you know, whether he held base or not and just done enough to keep him there, maybe. You know, but yeah, a lot of people got bored of GSP as well. You have to remember. You know, people thought he was just playing it safe, but he was fighting these killers and he done what he had to do to win and keep the title. And that's the sign of a true champion. You know, win at all costs. You know, like what's the point in going out and fighting, you know, reckless just to like please everyone in the audience,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
to make sure like to avoid risk of your life changing. So you have a world title, you have millions coming in, and all of a sudden they want me to go out and just start like throwing leather. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna try and win as, you know, impressively as I can, and that's what he done. Like you know, he's beaten serious killers in that division for many years.
100%. I think Curtis Blades mentioned it today in the post. Obviously, he's been under criticism for his style, but he gets the wins, and obviously he's fighting this weekend. And I think it was along the lines of like going towards the fans. Do you want to risk $100,000 when I'm trying to feed my family and provide a life for my family?
He's dead right.
If you don't like me, you know, because I don't knock someone out inside the first round.
Yeah, he's dead right. It's like people asking Connor to do like to go in and take people down and you know just keep them there. Nah, my left hand's where what makes the money. You know what I mean? It's like Ngannou saying turn into a grappler. Nah, I'm putting him out because I want to get paid. That's where my strengths are. You know that was GSP's and Curtis Blades is the same for him. I have no problem with it. The people who have a problem with it are people who aren't really you know fans of the sport. They want to see everything on the feet. So there's some fights that I'm like that where if you had two strikers and all of a sudden it ends up a grappling match, I'm like you know, because you kind of want to see two elite strikers exchange. You know that's where I probably would, you know, be a little bit disinterested. But nah, like if I know what the fighter brings and he goes out and does it, I enjoy it. You know.
100%. You see it a lot of the time, you know, mentioning Usman in Covington. We was thinking we could get this sort of wrestling sort of scrapping masterpiece from these two, you know, Division 1 caliber wrestlers, but we ended up getting a kickboxing bout for 4.5 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like sometimes you'll be the element of surprise, but that's what happens when you get like I said about the two strikers fighting and it ends up a grappling match, because you know you're just cancelling each other out. You know, so what do? We meet in the middle. Let's just stand here and punch the head off each other. And that was a war. That's one of my favorite fights. Seriously, it was just back and forth. And Colby looked fantastic. As much as like Colby's a bit of a dickhead, he's an excellent fighter. I don't think he gives a shit if people call him a dickhead. He knows he's a dickhead, but he also knows he's a fantastic fighter. And that was an unbelievable fight. And I'd actually look forward to seeing that being run back. I wonder if it go the same way though. I wonder if they would stand and trade again for another 5 rounds, or will we see more grappling involved? You know, taking it to the ground and stuff. Be interesting. One thing I was very impressed with. Sorry, Mitch. One thing I was very impressed with was the speed of Kamaru Usman for his takedown defense last week against Gilbert Burns. Like when Burns shot in, he was quick, and Usman was just that bit quicker, to defend. And I thought, like, I was very impressed with that because Burns was clearly relentless. If you look back at his Woodley fight, he was just on another level in terms of his speed, getting in there and getting Woodley to the ground, and thought Usman handled himself very well. Fucking God.
Yeah, it's crazy that we've seen, obviously, Gilbert Burns and Usman being training partners, and it'd be interesting to see how those gym sessions did go. 'Cause, we'll wrap it up soon, but Burns getting overexcited, connecting with him. Obviously, he probably connected with Usman many times in the gym, but to get overexcited against a former training partner probably, or might give some signs off that Usman probably got on the better end of the deal maybe more times than he didn't. And you mentioned that Colby comes in, but I do think that fight probably replicates pretty similar. Maybe not from Usman because he's got that energy and that emotion out of him from that first fight. But I do think they still despise each other, and I still think we don't see a boring fight from them ever. And I'd actually prefer to see that rematch more than a Masvidal rematch on a full camp, with all due respect to Masvidal. But I guess Masvidal, probably eclipses Compton on the numbers side of it.
Definitely eclipses him on the numbers side, but you have think about it. If he goes in and beats Masvidal again, like as the star that Masvidal's not Conor McGregor. He doesn't have that much stardom. So if he goes in and loses the 2-fight skate to the champion, what do you do? You know what I mean? Give him, and I think Colby's good enough to where he probably could take another loss, and then he'll have to work his way back. I don't see Masvidal being able to do that. I don't think Masvidal beats Gilbert Burns. I don't think he beats Colby. I think he looked impressive because we all know why he's as big as he is, because he knocked out Ben Askren and then capitalized by taking the Nate Diaz fight. Nate Diaz being the star in himself. But I just think especially with Colby, Colby's just a fantastic fighter. I'd be more than happy to see that run back. The thing is his gimmick's over. Like you said there, it'd be more personal fighting Colby. I think whoever fights Colby, it's personal because nobody likes Colby. But even Darren Till only said it recently on the Instagram live with Mike Perry. Colby's a dickhead, but he's good. And people just have to accept that. People kind of they throw a blind eye to their talent when they don't like somebody. Whatever. Who's he for? Whatever. Just pay close attention and you'll see. Colby's excellent.
Oh, what he did to Robbie Lawler, a former welterweight champion, was almost rude. 500 strikes, I think he landed on Lawler at a 5-round fight. But we will wrap it up there. So GSP number 1, I think we can agree. Kamaru Usman number 2, and I guess Woodley number 3, but maybe a bit of recency bias in that, albeit due respect that I did come into the game a little later to not fully sort of fall in love with Matt Hughes and Pat Miletech's reign, you could say.
Yeah, but see, I would probably put Matt Hughes just ahead of Tyron Woodley. How many defenses had Woodley had? 4?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 with Wonderboy, 1 was a draw, 1 with Till, and 1 with
Damian Maia, the lowest strikes in a title fight.
Right. So come on, you can't go off that. Jesus Christ, how's that better than that? And Matt Hughes has done. Matt Hughes was dominant. It's different eras. It's like football, right? It's like you touched on it a minute ago about Messi, Ronaldo, and stuff, and Pele, Maradona. How can we say that these are the greatest when it's just different generations? Who's the greatest of our time? Who's the best welterweight walking this planet right now? It's Kamaru Usman. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the best welterweight walking 10 years ago? George St. Pierre. 15 years ago, Matt Hughes. You know what I mean? It's different. It's different generation. It's different times. I know we're probably sitting here comparing and stuff like that, but really should we? Because we can't do nothing about it. It's not like we can actually settle this. Obviously we can have GSP fight Kamaru Usman because GSP is relatively healthy and stays in shape, but he's not as quick as he was. He's not as strong as he was. You know what I mean? So he's been out of the game since he fought Bisping, and before that, it's been a long time as well. So it's different eras. So beating GSP now proves nothing for Kamaru Usman. It's just different times, and we can't do nothing about it. So we can sit here and speculate, no problem. I'd rather sit here and enjoy it. I'd rather sit here and enjoy what Kamaru Usman's doing right now because I've enjoyed what GSP done for years. You know what I'm saying? It's the same way I said about Cain Velasquez. I enjoyed what he done in the heavyweight division. Stipe's doing it now. Whether he continues to do it after the Francis Ngannou fight or not, who knows? But he definitely won't do it after the John Jones fight if he gets by Francis Ngannou. John Jones is the GOAT now, you know what I mean? Or, now, currently, Jones. So, it's just a weird one. It's speculation. It's good for banter. It's good for talk. But really what it comes down to is we can't do anything about it to settle it. So, it's just opinions.
100%. Only 4 months ago, everyone wanted GSP to cut down to 165 to give Khabib a chance to 30-0. So it's a crazy sport that we live in, isn't it? It's all comparisons.
Yeah. But that win would have made Khabib the GOAT. You know what I mean? And that's not me saying that. That's what the purists are saying, because he has GSP's name on his record. He's so many years younger than GSP. He's in the prime of his career against GSP. And so you go in and beat him while you have GSP cutting as well. But as long as you have his name on your record, it's a weird one, Beating prime fighters is when I take note. And Kamaru Usman's doing that now, but he just needs to do it a little bit longer in order to really kind of overshadow GSP. But as it currently stands, GSP is the greatest welterweight of all time for me.
And again, we wrap it up there, but I think that's where your Demetrius Johnsons, your Anderson Silvas, and your John Jones, and your GSP's coming, because not only do they beat the guys in their sort of class and their generation, they then beat the up and comers. Up until Chris Weidman for Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson, Henry Cejudo, albeit it took Cejudo a second chance. We did eventually see the cream rise to the top, but John Jones moved to heavyweight because he beat probably 2-3 generations of light heavyweights.
Exactly. John Jones's career is identical to GSP's. The only difference with that one is Jones has a red flag beside his name. A lot of problems that stands in his way. If he didn't have that, if there wasn't a question mark about steroids, then there's no question at all who the GOAT is. So.
100%.
Well, we can just go on and say that Brock Lesnar's the GOAT if you want, dominate. He didn't even have an MMA background. You know what I mean? He just came in as a wrestler and beat the shit out of everybody.
Got a title in 4 fights, didn't he?
What's that tell you?
It's ridiculous what he's done. And people still want to see Daniel Cormier after he's been out of the cage for 8 years.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of years after the Mark Hunt fight, of course.
That was enjoyable, though. I would like to see that.
Hey, that little bit that we got after he knocked out Stipe between DC and Brock Lesnar was pay-per-view gold. The fact that they then didn't go on to make that fight was a little bit sad. And obviously DC went on to then lose that title and then lose the rematch and retire. But I think it
would have been so much fun too as well if you had my whole shit cut off there.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what you said.
With the Cain Velasquez beef and everything. But I do think we do see DC versus Brock Lesnar. I just think we see it, one, as a scripted event, and two, probably in the WWE. I think we see it in a couple of years in WrestleMania, probably get Kane out there as well. And we just have a load of fun when everyone's in WWE. Everyone's retired. Connor's owning WWE, Kobe owning WWE. Because we know, they know, well, probably not Connor, he's selling his whiskey, although that would be some sort of quite a fun gimmick to see in WWE. But yeah, I think we're getting off track there, so I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up there. And it is getting a little late now. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Of course, make sure to hit follow if you're watching on Twitch and Facebook. Now we're on Twitch now as well. And make sure to go give Jay a follow at jfarrell_1 on Twitter. And any last remarks from you, Jay? Anything to wrap it up on?
Yeah, Mike Perry's the GOAT.
Wait, I thought Artem Lobov was. That's a whole different debate.
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. It's always a pleasure. We'll get you back on for more content, of course. And we will be back for a preview for Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis, a heavyweight. I'm going to call it.
Can't wait for that one.
That's going to be one of those ones where we're sat in 6 a.m. going into the 5th round going, what's going on here? But no, it's going to be a great one. A heavyweight quarterfinal. The next week, I'm going to call it the other quarterfinal. We've got Cyril Gane versus Roderick. It's heavyweight month this month. And obviously the title's on the line next month as well. But yes, I'm going to leave it there, guys. And I'll see you guys on Saturday for the preview.